3, 2, 1.
Roll red, upright track red.
Turns and shoots, he scores!
Take back Silver. Take back
Got it.
Mic check 4. Number 2 RL.
Ready 3, take 3.
Ready
Number 4,
A.
stay with the defender, 30 blue.
Ready A, Dan.
4.
Way back to the wall, out the ball. That ball is out of here. Oh, sucker!
Have a good one, everybody.
Shooting to Score is brought to you by Hall Pass Media and Hall Pass Studios. Hall Pass Media is a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. Hall Pass Media has a wide range of clients and partners that include the NBA Summer League, NBA Coaches Association, and the basketball tournament, to name a few. For more information, please visit hallpassnetwork.com. My guest today is 3-time Emmy Award-winning video producer Devin Dismang. Devin has had a wild career journey up to this point in the world of video production, but was most recently the lead coordinating producer for the Golden State Warriors, before branching off on his own as a freelancer. Devin and I had a great conversation about the various positions he's held in his career, and you'll be surprised to hear all he's done, given how recently he's gotten into the sports video production side of things, if you've never seen any of his work. He and I have been colleagues and friends for several years now, but this was a unique opportunity to pick his brain about all aspects of video production for a championship team. I hope you enjoy our conversation and get as much out of it as I did. Enjoy this discussion with Emmy Award-winning producer Devin Dismang. Hey Devin, how's it going? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey Max, I appreciate the time. I'm very honored to be a part of this.
Yeah, excited to talk to you. Just wanted to get started out here, so everyone can kind of get to know you a little bit. What's been your, path of your career so far? Pretty much since the days of school on to where you're at now.
Well, my path originally started when I was 15. A lot of folks don't know that. It was even before school, and deciding on what to do, I actually started working for the Chicago Bears as a part-timer in their events and entertainment department. And I was one of those kids who got to run out with the flag and book national anthems and things like that, to where I didn't know this was a career. I just thought it was a cool part-time gig. And then once I got to school, I learned that it was a potential degree. Like, I could go to school to work in sports. And I was already playing football and doing these things, but when I realized that God wasn't going to grace me with being above 6 feet and athletic ability to go to the league, but I'm like, maybe I could still work in the league. So from there, I was all about marketing, right? I was all about putting on a show. That was the one thing I wanted to do. So I got into game presentation and production, which at the time, video was still very much not as utilized. It was more so about the live production and the fireworks and the lights and the music, because at this point, people aren't kind of glued to their screens. So I went to the Atlanta Falcons for a year, ran their game production and presentation as an intern right out of college. It was a blessing. We ended up being really good. We got the SEC championship game, and I got to do all these opportunities that I thought I'd never have. I remember one big story was my boss got hurt halfway through the season. He had a bulging disc in his back. He fell on a road trip, and they're like, "Hey, so you're going to run the Thursday night football game versus Saints," which for the Falcons fans and people who know, that's such a huge rivalry. Thursday night football, I think the halftime was Usher and Ludacris, very Atlanta. And I was in charge of it. I was 21 years old and scared out of my mind. And I'll never forget the VP came and talked to me for the game. He's like, "Hey, I got 3 words of advice for you, and I guarantee you'll calm down after I say it." And he said, "Don't mess up." And he just walks away. And I sat there like, wait, what's the word he said he's going to tell me? But those already, he's like, listen, as long as you know in your mind that you already have the confidence to do it, you're not going to mess up. You're going to have fun with it. So went from there, went to OKC Thunder, did a lot of that with their G League team at the time, the Tulsa 66ers, before they moved over to Oklahoma City as the Blue. Great opportunity there. It was my first full-time experience. Luckily received a position after that with the Chicago Fire back in my hometown. With the MLS and me not knowing much about soccer was a challenge. I had to learn kind of everything on the fly, but I still had the confidence and knowledge about running the team and things of that nature. And then, in 2014, I met a friend with the Golden State Warriors who said, "Hey, our team's kind of looking for someone in the position. You should throw your name out there." And I did, and it worked out. moved up, got the gig, moved to Oakland literally 5 days later. Kind of like packed in my apartment, sold everything I owned, and took off. And from there, it was just working that type of stuff. That was really my start in sports, was game presentation before I bumped up to video in 2016.
Awesome. And before we go too much into your time with the Warriors, because I definitely want to dig into that, right off the bat, you've obviously been a lot of places. What's your coolest moment so far in your career working in sports?
My coolest moment working in sports so far? Oh my goodness.
Or coolest project you got to work on, or something memorable for you so far?
I would say my most memorable one is the Quinn Cook documentary. You talk about this a little bit in the Warriors part, but it's the documentary I do with Quinn Cook, who's the backup shooting guard for the Golden State Warriors at the time. He's now with Los Angeles Lakers, and I kind of did his first ever kind of biography documentary about his life. This is a guy not many people know of. If you're a Duke fan, you're a super fan of the guy, but just telling his story about, where he came from and made it a very real piece. I've always loved real documentaries, things like Through the Wire, More Than a Game, things like that talk about basketball, but also behind basketball, which is who are these guys? Who are these people? Who are these athletes? What makes them? And that was my first very first in-depth interview with guys, to where I got people to really react emotionally on camera, whether it was, his mother was crying or his sister was, laughing and joking, and even him himself, he was, getting choked up during some of the stuff. And these aren't things people usually see, right? You see these guys in the lights as superheroes. They're the guys who go out, these 15 guys who go out every night and put on a show for us. They're gladiators, but to see them in a very vulnerable state, that's what I wanted, which that helps tell the best stories. So I think the Quinn one is obviously my favorite project, because it meant so much to his family. I'll never forget the viewing. A lot of people don't know this, is I actually viewed it with them before we approved it, and I wanted to get their final approval before we sent everything out. And his mom hugged me and thanked me for it, because a big part of the story is that his father passed away when he was young, right before a huge tournament, things like that. And they ended up watching it again and again. I think they watched 6 times in a night. It was crazy. So I think that's my favorite one, and obviously it helped that it won an Emmy too. So I'm not mad about that part. Yeah,
the Emmy Award winning Devin Dismang. Sorry I left that out in your intro.
I'm trying to humble myself now.
No, not at all. This is pump yourself up as much as you want. Obviously that was a pretty incredible opportunity for you, provided by your time with the Warriors. So I want to get into that. How, and I know you kind of mentioned on it before, but how did you bump up, from Santa Cruz? And I kind of remember this part of your story from talking to you at Summer League, but how did you get going from game ops into the video production staff?
Well, I was doing like you were saying, I was doing the Santa Cruz gig, just on the game production side. And as you know, a big part of game production is a video board. Mm-hmm. It's a video board content, and that's kind of the way game entertainment started to go, right? That's what people really, when they came to games, it wasn't just, hey, I want to look at the court and see what's going on. I also want to look at this giant screen in front of me and be entertained consistently. So when I started realizing that more and more, I got into video production, mainly out of a necessity. So I started playing around in Premiere and trying to do things I've never done before, watching tutorials on YouTube and things like that. And we have Media Day, as a lot of people know. You have Media Day every single year, and that was the only time you really get players on camera. It's tough to get them on camera during season. They're doing 1,000 things. So Media Day is like your one-all, we got to get everything. But come to find out, I was, I guess, pretty decent at directing guys on camera, which I didn't know was an issue at first. Because a lot of people fail to realize is, you see these guys on TV play basketball all the time, but they're not actors. They're not made to be, on TV consistently. They're not used to these cameras and talking on camera. They're just not made for it. So I somehow just kind of created an environment where they came in. I'm like, hey man, here's the script, here's the teleprompter. I just want you to be you, and we would kind of riff off one another on camera, and it worked well for Santa Cruz. The folks at Golden State saw it. There was a old executive producer there that I would have conversations with from time to time. It's kind of a mentor myself now, and he would, they had a departure at some point in the season, and they're like, "Hey, would you be interested in going strictly to video?" And I, at first, was intimidated. I was like, no, like, I don't think I'm ready for that. Like, I'm really just starting out doing this, and again, I'm not someone who films itself. So at first, I'm like, "Yo, I'm just not ready." And he's like, no, like, you would be a sincere producer, so you're kind of like our idea guy, to where he would come up with stuff, and we would have you work strictly for the video board side. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds kind of cool. Like, you're saying I don't have to do these types of things, but I can do this stuff that I'm kind of really passionate about right now. I'm like, all right, let's look into it. Looked into it, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was promoted literally within a week. It happened so fast, honestly. There was no, like, when most people have, like, paperwork or interviews. And it was literally like, hey, these guys want you, we're bringing you up. Like, I felt like my 10-day was, like, turned into, like, a real contract. It was crazy. And, yeah, got promoted, and I was literally, they were like, hey, you're coming to Oakland in 2 days, and that's really, really how it happened. It was kind of like a flash morning. It was so quick.
And I mean, the timing of it for you couldn't have been better, at least with the team that you're with, because that was right before their run, wasn't it?
Man, yeah. So, like, obviously, when I started in 2015, they won that championship, right? So that was the first year they won, and Santa Cruz won that same year. So in the first year I was ever with the Warriors and doing things, I had 2 championship rings off bat. So I was extremely spoiled. Like, within less than like 6 months of my new job, I'm a champion 2 times, and I couldn't believe it. So then they go to 2016, and that's a 3-1 lead situation and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, that's still history. They won 73-9. That's cool. And then, yeah, when I get promoted, it's really weird. I had a relationship with Kevin Durant before in OKC, and I remember hearing that he had signed with Golden State, and literally 3 weeks later, Golden State like brings me up. That has zero correlation to Kevin Durant coming to Golden State, but it was just random with the timing. And then, yeah, they go on their run. They go back to back. You got the Steph's already at that point 2-time MVP, and it was a magical time, because part of my position at this point is now I'm the lead storyteller for the team. Right. Is where I have to interview these 15 guys daily, and our fan base is relying on me and my team to portray these guys so they can get closer to them, because obviously they don't have the access like we do. So making sure they're coming across as human and as people versus shows us these very highly touted, like, legendary people that the world is touting them as. They want to see some vulnerability out of guys. So it was a great run, and obviously being a fly on the wall during that time was unbelievable.
So many questions here for just the whole video department for a professional sports team. That first off, just as you were mentioning, you got to be the storyteller. What direction or what emphasis did you have from marketing on the whether it be the types of content or the feeling? I mean, what did they give you? Be like, okay, we need to sell tickets, or we need to give fans this emotion, or we need to open up to this experience. What was the focus? I guess was there an overarching focus for your department?
The overall focus, honestly, was quality over quantity. That was really our biggest thing. Yes, there was thousands of stories you wanted to tell, right? Because obviously the team one you talked about, it's easy to do that, right? We're the storyteller for the team, coaches, players, all that. But you also got to remember, you got to tell stories for the business side. So our community side, our core partnership side, our ticket sales side. Golden State at that point was ranked, I think they had won like Sports Business of the Year like 3 years in a row or something. So you're doing stories that you may not be comfortable with or used to telling. But all stories had to have the same sort of narrative of how Golden State is making history. So whether it was tickets, we have 255 straight sellouts. How do we tell that in a story? Let's go interview a fan. Let's go talk to them. Why are they coming to all of these games during this run? Don't they have real jobs? What is going on that we're able to do these things continuously? And obviously, from the marketing plan through the playoff teams, their whole mantra at the time was strength in numbers. And they ended up turning that from just a playoff mantra to like a yearly one because whether it was narrative from the fans, from us, the players, it was that everyone needed to work as one in order to accomplish the goal. And we wanted to have that feeling in everything we did. And then the third, I guess, outline marketing theme was that we were the Bay's team. We weren't Oakland's team. We weren't San Francisco's team. We weren't San Jose's team. Whatever. We were all of these cities' team. And while, yes, like there has been, there's the misconception like, oh, this is Oakland versus San Francisco versus this and that. Like, they really hammered that home, especially the executives, during the championship run, they hammered that home because they didn't want it to seem, like we were leaving someone out.
Right.
So those are kind of the three big marketing things that they hit really heavily on the head, like on a daily basis.
Okay. So obviously a lot of ground to cover there. I mean, how big, I'm interested kind of a little bit logistically. I mean, how many people were on your video staff?
So there was, my goodness, by the time that of my departure, I would say there was 15. Started with like 6 or 7, and I think it's up to now like 15, and that's not including the part-timers, right?
Right.
I had a part of my position is I manage our production assistant program. And it was the first time the team ever had anything like this, but I wanted to use this, our platform, our thing to kind of mentor and grow the next crop of creatives on the video side through the Golden State Warriors. So when I started the program, I think we had 6 people, and then my last year I had gotten it up to like 18.
Wow.
And they did a bunch of different things, right? And they were shooting, editing. I had them come up with potential content ideas that if they went through the approval process, guess what? They're now producing their own piece for the Golden State Warriors. These are kids who were, finishing grad school at San Francisco State, or, kids who were, I hired a bunch of kids who just, as I like to call it, to YouTube University. They just learned everything on their own. And I wanted to see I wanted to compare, like, what's better, the kids that are learning by themselves or these people who are paying for these master's programs. And a lot of it had to come down to just overall ambition, who really wanted to learn and who could take direction. So it didn't matter what they did. It was just these traits that I started to know. And then from a full-time standpoint, we had what? 2 to 3 videographers, strictly videographers, myself and 2 other producers, an executive producer, a director of production. We had a media manager who's a great dude, but his job was probably the most important one, right? Because if we lost anything, then we can't do it.
Right.
3 animators and graphic designers who worked strictly on motion graphics. They were all great. And then a crop of folks who did strictly presentation editing. So it was a crop of people, man. So our space I remember our space was too small for as many people as we had.
Right.
So we had to put people in the studio room because, and fit them with laptops and GPU units because we just didn't have the space. Because of all the demand that we were getting requested for.
So I got a couple more just logistics things, as you mentioned, all those people and a lot going on. What were some of the technologies and equipments? I mean, so I guess we'll start off with cam ops. Was it just their personal equipment? Did each person have a personal preference on the type of camera they were using or type of lens, or did the team own equipment?
So the team owned everything.
Okay.
We were mainly a Sony house. So,
Okay.
We had, when I first got there, it was everything was Sony except a couple of Canons that we used we had a C100, C300 for practices that we covered on. And I ended up just using that gear as the production assistant gear for game days after a while. But then we kind of upgraded everything my last year. It was mainly, the main cameras we used were FS5, FS7. We had an FS700, but everyone really hated it, so we didn't use it after a certain year. And we updated, I want to say last year was a year and a half, was a Red Gemini is what we bought. We bought this whole red kit. So much money, but the stuff was beautiful.
Yeah.
So the main videographer there, his name's Tom Fournette, great dude, came from the Miami Dolphins. He actually helped be a part of his interview process and was part of the selection committee for him. And he wanted to get, I remember this, we wanted to get in the Ari camera.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost, it was his big dream to get it because he used it in the Dolphins. And they're like, oh, let's just go with the red. The red looks great, plus it's a little cheaper. But he shoots some great stuff on that thing. Some of the best shots I've ever been a part of been shot on that. But yeah, mainly a Sony house.
Okay.
Mainly a Sony house though.
What about software between your editors and your motion graphic artist? Was you guys in Adobe? I mean, I imagine San Francisco, probably Adobe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Adobe was actually a team sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So Adobe was a team sponsor, so we had everything we used was Adobe, except our lead editor, who used Avid. Avid was part of the old regime, but we only ever used Avid for mainly cataloging our footage as well as doing our television show, Warriors Ground, every month, because it's great at long-form editing. So she loved it. But I remember as I was, right before my departure, it was it's true now, but Adobe actually sponsors the Warriors studio team. So any content they make, any content they make is on there. It literally says Warrior Studio presented by Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
They have shirts now that have an Adobe patch. So the entire Creative Cloud kit was what everyone used, and then our graphic designers use everything Cinema 4D, and all that. So.
Okay. So, I mean, switching gears a little bit to kind of what you were talking about earlier you guys obviously had these different areas that you needed to focus on. Talk about you guys have a show, you're doing stuff to represent the city, the whole Bay Area. I mean, what were the different platforms that you guys were required to produce content for besides, just social media, but you had in arena, you had content that was geared towards hyping up the fans. I mean, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So the main, I would say, was kind of a three-pronged thing. The main thing, you kind of hit them all, was obviously digital platforms, so web, social, in arena, as well as business was kind of our third prong.
Okay.
Because one big topic we didn't talk about, we haven't got to yet, is the last 2 years I was there, is that we were gearing up for Chase Center. So everything, we had almost people gearing up strictly for Chase Center content, and filling up this well of videos that we needed to do to promote it, right? We hired a shooter, editor, producer we literally left him in San Francisco to document the build. And his entire job daily was shooting drone footage, interviewing construction workers, an entire entity for that. Web social deal was kind of the main beast because that's where we saw the most return on investment in regards to sponsorships and partnerships. Which that was your more storytelling pieces as well as where the TV show would go to. Those are always anything as quick as a highlight video to a 20-minute show. So there wasn't the projects ranged. In arena, the focus with in arena always seemed to change, whether it was theme night, feedback from fans, also what assets do we have, right? Is there anything from web, social, digital that we could repurpose to engage in arena? As well as just keeping the crowd, like I said it before, but keeping the crowd engaged, because as we noticed, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but it's true, as the team got better, the crowds changed, right? Ticket prices went up. The more loyal people who had been there for a while kind of got priced out. So you can't entertain the people who have more money to stay, right? They want different things than these folks. So having to kind of test things and rework things to kind of fit the demographic that was going to games. And then again, to the business ops side, just whether it was internal videos for presentations, sponsorship, how are we selling esports? Because again, the Warriors had an esports team, 2 of them that a lot of people they had the Golden Guardians who'd play League of Legends, and then the NBA 2K team, and you had to create content for all those things until we backfilled those roles, right? So it was a machine. You were cranking out 4 to 5 videos almost a day. That's not including again, we're not even talking about basketball, right? We're not talking about practice. Practice is covered. We're not talking about Coach Kerr at the podium after each practice. We're not talking about little things from practice that you could push out for a moment. Like this was all. It was so much in those final 2 years that literally we were cranking. No wonder we melted that server, because we were cranking stuff out like wild.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned like the Chase Center and then Coach Kerr after practice. I mean, I'd imagine you guys. And I mean, I can speak to this firsthand because I've put in requests to you guys, are producing content for agencies and third parties and news outlets and all these other people that are putting in requests to you. You guys are in charge of that as well, right?
Yeah. So the PR team there, a bunch of great guys there and girls there who would kind of facilitate those requests and then would send them to us. Because sometimes it was easier for us to get them versus like having crew come in. But you can imagine, like, during that time frame, like, they were getting hundreds of requests daily for, like, can we get Steph? Can we get Kevin? Can we get Clay? Like, daily for just little stuff. Or, like, do you have highlight footage? And after a while, they're just like, hey, let the studio team handle it, and then we'll just send it off, which added to our workload. And sometimes it was a blessing. Sometimes it was a curse, because then you're like, oh, my God, I'm doing this for someone who I'm not even going to use this. But we would facilitate those, and I would actually use those opportunities as a way to use our production assistants or, with like a senior person kind of helping them do it as an opportunity for them to learn. But, yeah, we would facilitate all those things. I remember one big project was HBO was doing like a series during the NBA Finals. It was similar to like how they do the boxing one, and I can't remember the name of it. But they were like requesting a ton of footage from us. And our media management guy, the EP, put him in charge of it. It was like, hey, just get these guys all the footage they need. Every day he was cranking out. I mean, he sent them like 4 to 5 hard drives, like 4 terabyte hard drives. And they were like, here you go. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, this is so much footage. But also, you got to remember the red footage is massive file size-wise.
Want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about catering towards different audiences and how you had to shift. How did you know when to do that shift? Like, and does your department, or was it the marketing department, do you guys use analytics in terms of how your videos are performing to make any of these decisions?
Yeah, we have the Warriors have an analytics department that does those measurements, right? So I was always a part of a meeting with the digital team in regards to just how things are doing, what stories are coming up, this and that. And there's always this guy from the analytics department who would kind of go through like what's hitting, what's missing, how are the Warriors ranking versus this. And then I would always ask for like a more in-depth piece, like, hey, can you show me what the videos are doing, right? On every platform, like, how's Instagram doing? How's Facebook doing? How's YouTube doing? Because those are the 3 big ones we were really worried about. Like, we're not too worried about video on Twitter at the time, just because, like, you'll get your views, which is great, but the return on investment in regards to a tweet is much different than Instagram, or it's just easier to find. So we would look at those things and we would evaluate, like, how did it work? Did it match what the sponsorship asked for in their contract, right? And if it did, it was pretty much like, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Re-up it for next year. But if it's something that didn't match the expectations of them or even us, because there were some times we did things where I didn't like it, and I would say, like, hey, I'm glad it met expectations, but I thought it was actually a piece of garbage that we did. We just rushed this out. So I would love to do another idea if possible. And then sometimes you can just see it, right? Like you watch people's work and like, man, that's kind of old school, or like that's kind of a played out idea. Or it almost looks like copyright infringement, right? Like someone just like plagiarized an entire idea from another team. You're just like, yeah, you want to make it look at least a little different. So we would go through the analytics every week almost to see like what is it, and at the end of the year we meet as a team, like what are we bringing back, what are we not bringing back, what do we need to change. which made it productive for sure. We always did pressure our partnership side to like look at it more because they would always wait till the last minute to tell us, which is, as you know, in the production world is name of the game, right? Like it's a lot of hurry up and wait, but like, hey, oh, we forgot about this. Can we do this next week? And you're like, oh, no. So we were more so trying to push, processes more versus just like the actual content, because that was the issue. But in regards to analytics and things like that, we had a ton of them, mainly because the Warriors just had an analytics department. That was an entire job to figure out what worked and what didn't.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's just listening to that. It's pretty clear how you guys were, nominated or won the, the sports business of the year for all those years, just because there's such a big team and so many moving parts and so much going on, but yet it seems like so much cohesiveness between it all. When you mentioned other teams and, ideas and stuff like that, what are some of the sources that you personally use or would like to use to gain inspiration?
Yeah, I think team wise, just in general, there's a ton of inspiration I have as of late for sure. But in regards to just like teams and things like that, I would say the Bulls are probably a top one for sure. I think Chris Ramirez and his team do a phenomenal job of storytelling, and to do it with a team that's not performing in a way that other teams are, right? Like they're not the best team in the league by any means, but they still do an amazing job of engaging their fans and telling the stories of their teams that people are interested in, even though their team isn't top notch. I think they do a fantastic job of that. In regards to other creators, I know right now I'm kind of in this phase where I'm looking at just individual creators. I think there's a shooter out of Michigan. I think he's in LA now. His name's Ty Rogers, who does a great job as a videographer, and I love his cinematography and the things that he's done. Jason Peterson, the photographer, that's out here in Chicago, amazing work as well. I have a friend, Andre, who's a photographer in New York, and his work is amazing. One of my best friends works for Lakers now, named Joseph Sherman. Does incredible basketball photography. I used to work for Slam, but now he's the head social guy for Lakers and does all their photography. So I pull a lot of my inspiration in regards to like individuals because people are challenging themselves on a daily basis versus like on a team basis. Because as you know, teams have filters and certain criteria they have to meet. When people are just doing stuff themselves, you can kind of see their work. So I've been looking at a lot of that lately. So those are probably my main sources of inspiration at the moment. I'm probably forgetting so many others, but as of right now, those are off the top of my mind and people I definitely look at on a regular basis.
No, that's great stuff. So I do want to kind of shift towards what you're up to now, but my kind of last question and a little bit of a hardball, so not sure if you can answer it or not, but I remember when we talked a couple years ago, you were saying how the size of your video team was growing because of the team's success, and it's like an accordion where as the team starts doing bad, there's not they have to start cutting areas because there's just not as many eyeballs on stuff, and it makes total sense. Did that have anything to do with you kind of stepping away?
A little bit. A lot of it was, to be real, there's a lot of things that played the factors of it. Mainly because biggest factor was when my wife got a job at Chicago Cubs during the playoffs, and she moved back here to our home city of Chicago, and I had a long and very difficult conversation with my wife, like, maybe this is it. Like maybe the run has ended. And what's crazy is I almost manifested it because when I first found out about Chase Center, I remember telling my wife, like, I think I'm going to be gone before Chase Center or like right around Chase Center because I just don't see myself as a part of that environment. Because again, as we just talked about previously, things were changing, right? Like it was definitely an internal battle, and overall, like, me and the team just came to agreement. We parted ways, and it worked out. It was definitely tough, though. I will admit it was tough because I really didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my team at the time. It was more so like, hey, we're doing this. We should just do it now. And yeah, it was that.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like an incredibly tough decision. But I know it hasn't been that long, but how's it turned out for you? How's it going for you now? And can you go into a little bit of what you're up to?
Yeah, man. So my challenge was like, all right, well, what do I do now? I'm moving home, and I didn't know what to do next. I'd never been in that position before. I always just jumped from job to job. So this was the first time I've ever been on my own. And I had a lot of people reach out to me and say, like, oh, apply for this gig and do that. And I had a bunch of interviews. And eventually I talked to a few folks and like, why don't you just go in business for yourself? And it's something I've always thought of, but I was always too intimidated to even consider it. So I was just like, well, if I don't do it now, why not? Like, I have no excuse. So as of right now, I'm a freelance, full-on content creator in regards to video, photo, graphic, animation. I'm also learning stuff, but I'm also doing some of the stuff. And my emphasis right now has been sports just because that's what my background has been in. So I've signed a few clients. And the main client I have right now is JaVale McGee with the Los Angeles Lakers. And that partnership is I'm pretty much in control of his content, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Like, I'm creating video content that's relevant to him and his story on a daily basis. The biggest thing that I want to do is, again, tell stories. And there's different ways you can tell stories, and I want to tell real stories, not the same, like, ESPN type stories. So-and-so had 12 rebounds and 6 points. Like, I want to tell, like, hey, they were cracking a joke on the sideline. What was that joke about? And get that type of those little clips, because that's the stuff people want to see. They want to feel like they're a part of that bench. They want to feel like they're a part of that synergy that's going on with the team. So when you get to give them a window to that, that's what matters. And luckily, guys like JaVale understand that content is king in regards to telling their story. Again, his story's always been, like, 3 years, people made fun of him, and now, like, he's truly being taken, seriously these last 4 to 5 years. And he's a diehard vegan. He does great stuff for the community. His community just builds water wells out in Uganda for places that don't have water. And these stories that people before him wouldn't even listen to, now people are getting behind them, right? So that is what I'm really focused on now. And as well as just helping, working with brands, the standard freelance stuff, working with brands, companies to further their narrative, further their mottos and visions as much as I can. And but again, I'm just beginning. It's on the ground floor. This is something I really just kind of got off the ground floor back in October. So I'm trying to make more moves going into 2020.
And I think, I mean, it from knowing you and listening to the beginning part of your story, it kind of almost makes sense that you're going this route because of your unique ability to make relationships with players. And it sounds like that's what kind of have gotten you to this point in your career. Can you talk to that? And, is there ways that people, like myself, doesn't necessarily have that natural ability to just connect with a random person, let alone a star athlete, just because I think that's incredibly important in this field.
I would say it sounds so simple, but you just talking to, like, don't get caught up in, like, what someone does. Mm-hmm. One of the things I tell the athletes, I'm like, yeah, there's a camera here, but you're talking to me. Mm-hmm. Like, don't worry about this camera being here. If you worry about the camera, you're going to change up everything. You're going to be tenser. You're going to kind of get nervous. You're going to get jittery. It's just part of what we're used to. I compare it to, you remember school photo day for, like, the yearbook when you were, like, a middle schooler?
Yep.
And you had to get dressed up. And you were so uncomfortable all day long because you had to worry about this camera. And I think that's so ingrained in the people's lives as they grow up when they see a camera. That, like, when they get on camera, like, oh my God, okay, I gotta smile. How's my face look? Is my hair weird? Like, no, just be you, dude. Like, you can look funny all you want to, but no one's gonna care about that unless the content's great. Mm-hmm. In regards to just talking to someone, like, I tell you, just talk to everyone like they're human or like how you want to be talked to. Like, they're people. Sure, their job is super cool. I would love to be 7 foot and play in the NBA every single day. But if you're able to talk to someone that does that, don't say, like, oh my God, the last game was great, and like walk away. I've seen some of the most awkward encounters I've ever seen. So I think people truly want to know these guys, but they also have to remember they're human too. So talking to them like they're people, like you would talk to your brother, your sister, your best friend, that's going to open them up way more than just being like, how you doing, sir? Like, pleasure to meet you. I'm just a huge fan. Like that stuff, they already kind of close up at that because they're afraid of what's going to be said next. And then overall, this is something that I learned kind of on the fly, but just environment, right? Like if I brought someone into kind of like a dark, clammy room with like weird fluorescent lighting, like I would be kind of tensed up too to talk to you. But like if your environment's kind of opening, welcome, and the people around you are opening and welcome, and just the vibe is different, people are going to come in with a better attitude to want to have conversation with you. And you know this, like speaking with athletes from time to time, if they just got off a game where they just got their butts beat by 40, they're not going to really want to talk to you about like, ooh, you talk to us about your diet today. Like we really want to know like what you prepped for the game. Like no, like they're livid, so you have to somehow like break the ice, like hit them with a joke, do something that might land to where it will, kind of just ease that tension that they're putting on themselves at the moment. That would really be my advice, because again, all these guys are just people, man, and they just have a really cool job, and we just get to watch them do it.
That's great. What are some of your goals and aspirations? I know this whole new step of your career is fresh and new, but what's long term for you, Devin?
Man, long term, right now, I would love. I have three main goals, and you're the first one that actually told these two. Three main goals I really want to do long term is, now that I'm back in Chicago, I want to tell Chicago stories very in depth. And that could be anything in regards to basketball, but just overall city stories. One of my goals with that is I want to create a TV series about Chicago basketball, and that's something that I'm really working on. I got a couple things in the works with it right now, but I want to create a TV show that talks about Chicago basketball. Number two, I want to create this almost a production home for Chicago in regards to creating content. As you know, in LA or the Bay Area or New York, like you can contact a ton of production houses without even trying. Like, oh, I know this person, this person. Chicago really doesn't have that. There's a few creatives out here, but a lot of them relocate to LA or relocate to New York, so none of them really stay here. Now that I'm back here in my home city, I want to build that as much as possible, because there's a lot of creative energy here. It's just that it doesn't stay here. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's tough to tell a city story without being from that city, or giving the opportunities for people here. Because again, like one of my favorite things with the Golden State was I got to mentor the next stage of people. So I would love to do that again, and help them accomplish their dreams and be able to touch these things. Again, I was from a low-income area, from the South Side, and I didn't have a lot of the opportunities people on the North Side had, or people in LA have. So I want to somehow build those opportunities out for that next wave. And I think my third overall goal is, this is just a random one-off thing, but I want to create a full-fledged movie. I haven't done it. It's something I wanted to do for years. Still, I have 300 ideas of what I want it to be, but it's something I've never done, and I've really been passionate about it. I've always watched, movies was one of my biggest hobbies growing up. It's the reason I kind of got into this. And, it's something that's taken the back burner for a long time. So I really want to make something special, or be a part of something special, where I'm like, hey, I put my name's a part of this, or I made it. So it's me. It's a reputation of me. So those are probably my three biggest long-term goals, I would say.
That's awesome. Going back to a little bit of what you're saying about bringing all the younger people in and getting to mentor them, is there a constant theme in advice or a big piece of advice that you have for someone that's looking to get into the video side of professional sports?
I would say for anybody getting into sports, or getting into video in general, don't talk yourself out about it. Don't talk yourself out of it, I should say. The biggest thing I learned while mentoring the people at the Warriors were people are afraid to try things. Like I would say, like, hey, I just need you to animate a basketball. That's it. I just need to animate a basketball. And the first answer I would get was, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. There's 15 people in this room. Out of every of these people in the room, who knows how to animate? And they would say, like, who's ever in the room. Like, well, this is a great lesson. Use your resources to learn what they know to then apply it to your project. Because I've realized that a lot of people are scared to ask questions, like really scared to ask questions. Because people feel like it's going to come across weak, or you're coming across as you just don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I was so guilty of that. And I still kind of am. And I actually tweeted out the other day is, going into 2020, I'm going to personally ask for more help because I don't know everything. You might know something I don't know, Max. So why wouldn't I reach out to the resource who knows it to learn it as well? And I would say that's one of the biggest things I would tell people is like, just ask. Just ask for help, ask to learn it. And it's, no one's going to look down upon you for doing it. I actually think now people are looking down upon people for just being like, I'm just going to figure out, I'll just try to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that's great. I really want people to attempt learning it first before asking someone. Mm-hmm. But there's people who would just give up and be like, no, I don't want to bother someone. And that's where they're failing. Mm-hmm. And that was the one thing I noticed with all my part-timers. A lot of them didn't want to ask for help. And they would sit there literally at their computer and just wait for me to come over and be like, how's everything? Like, I can't figure it out. I'm like, you've been sitting here for an hour and a half and you just, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't waste your time. Like, time is the only thing on this planet we don't get back. Like, I can make all the money back I lose, but I'm never going to get the 90 minutes I spent working on something and trusting you to make this animation, and you just sat there and waited, you know what I'm saying? So you got to take advantage of every single moment you get. And then another thing I would tell them is apply for everything. Literally apply for everything. Because I've met some 21-year-old kids who do some amazing editing work, and they're better than some of the 28-year-olds I've met. Mm-hmm. So you never know where your skill is going to be, and people talk themselves down on their skills all the time.
Right, especially as artists, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and you might agree with this. Like, you might be your hardest critic because you'll look at something and be like, I just don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I'll send something right now. I'll send something to JaVale, and I'm like, ooh, I don't like it. And he'll just be like, dude, this is amazing. Think you got it. And I'm just like, I don't know if I'm looking for validation or like what it is, but it's we're in our minds like it's never good enough. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I talked to a group about now recently was like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't good enough.
That's great. I mean, you hit it on the head right there. I think most people in our profession or that are creatives, it's always, and that's, you know, why you're in this is because you just have that drive to be better and do it. But, you know, that always feeling of anything you put out, it's not good enough, or I could have done better. Want to shift a little bit to, you know, you're from the school of self-taught, I guess. So what are some of the blogs you read or YouTube channels you like or stuff like that helps you grow and helps you learn and helps you figure these new things out?
Yeah, man, I'm very much a YouTuber for sure. Very much a YouTuber. Like, for instance, I am terrible at, like, Photoshop is not where I'm good at. It's something I'm continually trying to learn and things like that. But literally there's a YouTube channel, I believe it's called like Photoshop Training Channel. And I just watched a whole day of stuff one day. I was like, let's just try this. Let's see how it works. Mm-hmm. And I got better, right? I got better from attempting what they're doing. A lot of these places a lot of these YouTube channels will even provide the projects and the files in their description. So, you know, the information's out there. Another one I really like to look into is Cinecom.net. Their YouTube channel is amazing. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. I actually was just trying to play around with that locked-on stabilization effect that the Beats by Dre commercial had. Mm-hmm. With the headphones, because I really wanted to do that for a piece I was trying to do, but I couldn't figure it out. Yeah. And thank God, these guys are just like, hey, we have a whole 8-minute video on how to do it. So looking at that as well. And then another one I was just looking at not too long ago, and this is more so just for assets, but Motion Array is a really good one. for like Premiere and what do you call it, After Effects projects.
Right.
They have great like just project files you can play with or templates you can play with. If you're just stuck creatively, that's a great subscription to get because they'll have people who've done these things. And you're like, oh my god, this is a great idea. Let me learn it. But I think those are my top 3 right now. I need to look at some more. Honestly, I need to read some more blogs and things like that. In regards to that, but more so too is I use Instagram a lot too. Like for instance, Will Smith's channel, like his channel is unbelievable in regards to storytelling, and I'm always figuring out like how the heck are these guys doing it? And luckily, he has his own Westbrook production house, but he's doing things that I've never seen on someone's page like that before, right?
Yeah.
And to come find out, all those clips are from like his longer form YouTube page, which again didn't know that until I did the research. So, I would say probably those ones are really the ones I'm looking into right now.
That's great. No, I mean I love that. I mean just to kind of encompass a lot of the stuff you just said, I saw kind of a shift in my career when I stopped being afraid to ask questions or stopped having that expectations of, I don't know how to do it. And, it's not therefore not my responsibility. Once I started to get into these blogs and stuff, and I had no idea where to start. It was just like, I started with a Google search, how to, or whatever, or, learn video tips or whatever. So now that I've gotten the ones that I like, I'm very curious and love to ask people and that are in the industry to pick their brains. Cause I wish I could have had this 10 years ago, right? Just getting into this stuff, been able to get this information right off the bat. So now that I know it's out there, I'm a big proponent of spreading the word of all these different resources that are out there and finding out in what other people like and what they use.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, internet, like, it sounds so cliche, but the internet has everything. Like, the information is truly out there. Like, as long as you can do anything you want. Like if I wanted to go like redo some, like my car stereo, I could Google that and find it.
Right.
So I could easily figure out like how to use After Effects properly. Like I could do all of that just by an 8-minute YouTube video. And the fact that people try to like talk themselves out, like, well, I don't have time, and then they just use that 8.5 minutes to just scroll on Instagram drives me insane.
Right.
Because like you're not using Instagram as a tool, you're using it as a vice. That's 2 different things.
Right.
And people easily get that, I'm getting inspired from Instagram. No, you're not. You're just looking at like a team scoring like an IG model. Like that's not what you're doing. Like don't try to tell me it's a lesson. You're using it to disconnect from the world right now, where you can use the same platform to actually learn. There's a oh my goodness, there's a motion graphics guy. I think his name's like Edward or something like that, who does these crazy After Effects masks. And I made an effort recently to kind of like unfollow like clutter on Instagram, to follow like more creators, which I suggest to anybody. Like there's a ton of clutter on your stuff that you don't need to look at anymore. Please just unfollow it. Like don't mute it, just unfollow it, and then find stuff that's going to inspire you.
Yeah.
And this guy makes these crazy masks. It's just like cyberpunk type style, and they're just super sick. I think Will Smith actually brought him in for like the Gemini Man like trailer. It's crazy good.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean I do, you mentioned templates there earlier too. Like that was how I learned After Effects before I knew all these resources were out there, was downloading templates and then kind of deconstruction, hit that hidden button to showcase all the files that they put in and all the keyframes that they used, and then that kind of helped me understand, how this stuff worked. But yeah, that's some great advice there. Shifting, or just a question about team video again.
Yeah.
Where do you think that industry or that profession is going in the next 5 or 10 years? What do you think the changes will be there? Yeah, for the production staffs for teams. What do you think will be different from now and 5 or 10 years from now?
The biggest difference, I think, is that players are going to start owning their own content, to where it's going to be more difficult to actually get the content you want with certain players. I saw that myself with Steph and Kevin. in Golden State because, again, Kevin had 35 ventures and Steph had unanimous. So they already had a crew do it telling his story. So why would they employ a team to do it, right? So I think somehow figuring out a way to work cohesively with a player personally versus and through their company versus like through your traditional PR way is going to be a huge challenge. It's going to be a huge thing to get over because then you're going to run into like partnership issues, right?
Right.
Steph has his deal with, Palm, or I think that's what it's called, the little tiny phone. And the Warriors, let's say, have a deal with AT&T who sell all these other phones. Well, if AT&T doesn't match what Steph's, partnership is, he's not going to do it. So they're going to have to figure out ways to incorporate, team stuff within a player thing. And it may not be just like the traditional channels, and I guarantee it's going to be frustrating for sure. I think another thing that's going to happen with team and staff content in regards to just creation is going to be a lot more animated pieces. Usually, clipping off stuff is great, but now people want more. They want some oomph to that clip, right? So a clip that would take you literally 15 seconds to just clip off the camera is now going to take you 2 days to play around with, depending on who you are. And if you're really good, they might get you same day. So it's changing in a way that social media is kind of ruling the creative concept. And for me personally, I really hope it gets back to like YouTube and like YouTube really, they're ruling now. But I hope it gets more forward facing that YouTube is with people versus like Instagram, because people get so caught up in like the instant gratification of content that the actual content is suffering. So I think the quality of content is going to suffer in regards to teams because people are going to be so worried about just cranking out as much as possible. So I'm hoping teams and staffs in general are putting people in place that understand like you can have the quantity, but you still have to have great quality, because you can pump out a ton of content, but it can all be garbage. And that is where I'm nervous things are going to go, because people are so anxious about pushing out work that they're not taking the time to make it great. And then obviously they're almost competing with player-owned content. So now they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? So they have to figure out a way. They figure out a way to work cohesively with the player, that production house, as well as making sure that quality isn't suffering because of the amount of quantity they're pushing out.
That's interesting. Great insight there. As we wind down here, wanted to give you a chance to show some love. Who have been some of the most instrumental people in your career?
Man, in my career, there's a lot of people, dude. Hamza Maz, first and foremost, the guy who works with Atlanta Falcons, gave me that really first big opportunity. Very grateful for him. Paul Hodges, who's now the VP of San Francisco Giants production house. He was the old executive producer of the Golden State Warriors. He actually is the one that promoted me up. For that, I would say he's been a great person, and he always keeps up with me and just checks in on me as well. Obviously my wife, I gotta give her a shout out, man, because she's the one that pushed me to do this freelance side. She's actually the biggest one who was like, I think you should do it. Like, people keep telling me why not to do it. JaVale, as recently, just because he's given me this opportunity to kind of showcase. He was the first guy that was like, listen, you've been my guy for a while. I want to do this. Let's do it. And I didn't really expect it to happen that quickly. Which helps out a lot. Obviously, you know what? I'm going to have to give Warner Albert a shout out, because obviously with somebody I wouldn't be able to make you, first and foremost. Yeah. And because those guys really pushed me to challenge myself from the game ops side daily which then helped me encompass myself when I actually got promoted to the video side. So, like, their mindset I took back with me to the Bay and was like, hey, listen, we got to do it this way and try these things and do this. And then my small circle of guys, my best friend, like I was telling you earlier, Joseph Sherman, and my other friend, Joel Osborne, they kind of keep me honest. I'm like, when I have those spouses, like, dude, I feel like I'm doing terrible work and things like that. They're kind of like the guys that are like, dude, shape up. Like, no, you're not. You're here for a reason. Like, stop being this way. Because I keep a lot of my circles tight for sure in regards to that. But definitely, I think that would round out a lot of the folks I want to give a lot of love to, because without those folks, for sure, I wouldn't be in the business I am today. And there's a lot of other folks, like obviously my family, things like that, people like that who helped me grow on the back end to get to this point. But in regards to these recent years where I was really pushing creatively and trying to figure out my path, I would say that a lot of those folks helped me instrumentally figure out where I'm trying to go. So much love for all of them, for sure.
Awesome. That's fantastic stuff there. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add, or anything you want to talk about?
Man, no, man. I think I got it. I think I'm good. I think we covered everything.
Quite a bit.
I think we covered everything right now.
Awesome.
I appreciate you allowing me to do this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for jumping on with me. It's been great, catching up a little bit, and I've had fun kind of dissecting your professional life to this point.
I appreciate it, I'm glad I can be the case study for sure.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, show Devin some love on social. He's at Dismang. That's DISMAYNE. Or he's on Vimeo if you want to check out some of his work at vimeo.com/Devin Dismang. That's DEVIN DISMANG. We'll link to both of those in the description. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to many more conversations to come.